Take the number 1000 and increase it by 25%. What would you get? Well, it's straightforward. Multiply 1000 by 25% in its decimal form, which would be 0.25, then add 1000 to the number you just calculated. How about taking 800 and increasing it by 30%? Unsurprisingly, you would do the same thing. Multiply 800 by 30% in its decimal form, 0.3, then add 800 to the number you just calculated. This can be seen as the following formula. Take your base damage, multiply it by the percentage increase in decimal form, then add your base damage to your result. This expression can be simplified. First, you need to divide what's inside and outside of the brackets by base damage, and then multiply everything by base damage. The expression looks more complex, but once we start cancelling out, we get this. This makes increasing a number by any percent a lot more comprehensible. If you want to increase by 10%, just multiply by 1 plus 0.1. Want to do the same thing with 50%? Multiply by 1 plus 0.5. This is how Honkai Star Rail's damage boost works for damage calculation, and it's only a small part of a larger process. Defense Shred affects your defense multiplier. The defense multiplier is based on both your level and the enemy's level. It has a maximum value of 1, unlike damage boost, which has a minimum value of 1. This technically means the defense multiplier's entire purpose is to reduce damage. Obviously, we can reduce the amount of damage the defense multiplier already reduces via using defense shred, more on that later. Assuming no character has any form of defense shred, the defense multiplier is based on the percentage which is determined by your character level relative to the combined level of your character and the enemy. This effectively means that there is a damage penalty if the level of the enemy is significantly higher than yours. This is typically above a 10 level difference. For example, a level 80 character versus a level 90 enemy will have the same defense multiplier as a level 70 character versus a level 80 enemy. For this video, I'll be assuming that the enemies are level 90 and your character is level 80. Using those numbers, the defense multiplier is 0.4761904762. This effectively reduces your damage by 52.4% and is our base value for the defense multiplier. Now to include defense shred into the equation. Defense shred increases the defense multiplier exponentially. This is because the defense multiplier is inversely proportional to defense shred. To make this simple, assume that the character and enemy levels are constant, at level 80 and 90 respectively. Because these values are constant, we can reduce them down to the value of 1. The expression should now look like this. We can also remove any irrelevant addition or subtraction to make it much more simpler. Your defense shred has a range. This range is from 0 to 1 or 0% to 100%. Once again, to make things simple, let the expression be 1 over 1 minus defense shred, and let 1 minus defense shred be a variable called x. The equation should now look like this. Remember, that x represents 1 minus defense shred, so it contains our defense shred value. If x starts out to be 1, then the defense multiplier is 1. If we double x from 1 to 2, the defense multiplier halves from 1 to 0.5. If we halve x from 1 to 0.5, then the defense multiplier doubles from 1 to 2. This is what we call inversely proportional. When one side increases, the other side decreases by the inverse factor. This also works the opposite way around. If you double something, which is multiplying by 2, then the other side will experience the inverse, which is simply swapping the numerator with the denominator. Because x is 1 minus defense shred, if 1 minus defense shred increases, then the defense multiplier decreases, and vice versa. Because we want the defense multiplier to increase, as we want to reduce the amount of reduction the defense multiplier does, we need to increase 1 minus defense shred. And because defense shred has a range between 0 and 1, we want a higher value of defense shred to make 1 minus defense shred as close to 0, its lowest possible value. If that was too confusing, unlucky, because it might get more difficult. Because we understand how increasing the defense multiplier increases damage, let's take an example and try to see if we can equate it to a damage boost value. For the sake of simplicity, let's assume the base damage is 1000 and the defense multiplier is 0.4. We won't be taking other variables into consideration, as they're currently irrelevant for the comparison. With a defense multiplier of 0.4, our damage decreases to 400. Using the same base damage, let's assume that an arbitrary value of defense shred causes the defense multiplier to become 0.6. How much of a damage increase is a defense multiplier from 0.4 to 0.6? Is it the same amount of damage as a damage boost would do from 1 to 1.2? Well, our damage is 600 because 1000 times 0.6 is 600. And to find out the damage increase, we just need to divide our new value by our old value. This means our damage increase is 600 divided by 400, which is 1.5, or 50% increase. This gives us the equation to understand the defense multiplier in the eyes of damage boost. The equation is just a single fraction, where your numerator is your final defense multiplier, and the denominator is your initial defense multiplier. If your character is level 80 and the enemy is level 90, then your denominator will just become this. The numerator is technically the same as the denominator, it just takes into consideration the amount of defense shred you have. Technically speaking, here's the entire equation, and here's a graph for visualization. If you want to see how this equation works, a link will be provided in the description.